Well, I'm going to move to the next slide because the last uh, uh, stanza verse of this song literally makes me cry because he basically says, if you see my sad country, um, I long for it, and my last vision will be of her. So that's the song. The 1800s folks were singing some pretty sad stuff, and it's why many of you are here. As I said, um, that is really the beginning of this. Um, I've recently had the pleasure of being able to speak with Don Chapman, who you may or may not know his name. Don Chapman is the reason that Bill C-3 has come where it has. He has been fighting for decades to establish his Canadian citizenship, his right to be a Canadian citizen. And Don has written a book called The Lost Canadians, if you can get a hold of it. I know it's on Kindle. Read his story. It's very important that he's the father of the lost Canadians. And I'm hoping we'll be able to maybe get him to come to our festival in the fall. Fingers crossed. But so the person that's speaking right now, my name is Shannon Mondu. I am the creator and director of Canadiana Fest. And I've been living in the United States for 20 years. And at the end of the pandemic, I decided if Canada couldn't get to me, I was bringing or if I couldn't get to Canada, Canada was coming to me. I'm also a chef and a culinary instructor. I have a couple of degrees from the University of Windsor. I love my homeland here. I love my homeland in Canada. I can't imagine living anywhere other than where I do in the United States, but I love it here. So I'm going to move on to introducing you to our genealogist today. Janine is just a font of knowledge. Janine is with the Kalamazoo Valley Genealogical Society, and she has been researching Canadian genealogy, particularly French Canadian, for, I don't know, 40 years, Janine?
Yeah, 40 plus.
And she's going to help lead us through this. So I am going to let her drive the bus, and she may need to take over and have her own sharing capabilities. But for now, she's just going to inform me when she wants to move on to the next slide. If you have anything that you want to ask, please put it in the chat and I will go through it. Right now we have 0 questions in the chat, and that's okay. We want to make sure that everybody gets a chance, if we can, to answer your questions at the end. Please think about them as you're going through this. I hope all of you had a good couple of weeks and time to get into what Janine taught in the last session. And that is also available on our website. You can watch that. It's about an hour long, but it's complete. So yeah, and here we go. There you go, Janine.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Okay, everyone, as Shannon said, welcome back. I hope you had some time over the last 3 weeks to maybe fill in your pedigree chart a bit or do a little research. But tonight we have this agenda. We're going to talk about Canadian National Archives. The last time we spoke about several provincial archives. We're also going to be looking at researching other New France and Quebec databases, genealogy software programs. Some are subscription and some are free. I will do my best to demonstrate a legacy family tree free genealogy software that I use. And over the next several days, I'm going to try to put together a document that has the names of the various sites, websites, or databases and their URLs on a document that Shannon can send out when she sends the link to this Zoom meeting. Next. Next.
Yep, I'm, oh, it jumped. Hold on.
Okay.
There it goes.
Thank you. Okay. So the official Canadian National Archive is called the Library and Archives of Canada, LUC for short, LAC. And like most countries' archives, it has the original census records. Of course, we're very lucky because a lot of the websites, genealogy websites, have been able to also have them on their locations. So we don't always have to go to the National Archives. Nationally, they keep all the immigration citizenship files. Also land grants, which I highlighted because I know there are people who are researching ancestors who were in the US during the American Revolution, but they were loyalist, and they eventually ended up moving to Canada, where the British government gave them some land grants. Military and political records would be in the National Archives. And I also highlighted Indigenous information. I know many people would like a way to research that. I've also included on this slide this is the French name, Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales du Québec, BANQ, or BANQ for short. It is the National Library and Archives of Quebec. And I put it on this slide because the land up north started as New France. And all of those records for 150 years or would be on this site. And now it is also a provincial archive for the province of Quebec under the current format that they're using. And it has the vital statistics, birth, marriage, and death from the 1620s to about 1917. It also has copies of contracts of all kinds, even a marriage contract, which the French were very much into legality, and this is like a prenup, as well as contracts for purchasing land or other items. Banque has digitized Quebec newspapers. It has records of notary and court documents, land records, and even inventories after death, because that was very important for the inheritance, the will. So as I said, they were very much into legalities. Next.
Just taking a moment.
Okay. So when I went on the site for the Library and Archives of Canada, of course, at the beginning, you have some pretty pictures, you have a little description of what it is, etc. But if you keep scrolling down, you get to the collections. Now, that's the important part. So if you see in that left-hand column, pardon me, the most requested collections, there were several. And the last one is genealogy and family history. So since that's what we are doing, that's the one I clicked on. Next. So this search page came up. And on the far left side, there is topic. I've already clicked on genealogy and family history. And then there is a place for a subtopic. Excuse me. There's a drop-down menu, and I picked First Nations, again, because I know many of you are interested in that. And a couple of things came up on the right-hand side here. First Nation genealogy. I did not open these to see what was in it, but it'll be a surprise for you. And also unmarked burials, which is strategies to help identify burial sites associated with Indian residential schools, which is a very hot topic these last several years. Next. So as I kept researching there, I also found that there were not so much collections maybe, but descriptions or little videos on different things that had to do with Indigenous people. And the three at the bottom were the ones that I thought would be most useful to us. In the middle, we have First Nations genealogy. So Canada calls First Nations what we in the US call Native Americans. Then on the left, we have Métis National Genealogy. Many of you probably have never heard this word, Métis. And what it is, Métis individuals are descendants of a marriage between a First Nation person and one that is not First Nation, usually European. So their descendants are called Métis. And then on the far right side, we have Inuit genealogy. The west part of Canada goes up very high near our Alaska and very cold and snowy. In the US years ago, we would call these people Eskimos. Next.
Janine, I'd just like to add something about the Métis nation
Sure.
versus the Métis descendants. So I happen to be a Métis descendant. There are a number of people in my lineage who were Mi'kmaq from New Brunswick, from the Restigouche region of New Brunswick in particular. But there is a big difference between the Métis nation and what we might say in the diminutive Métis, which is someone who is of mixed heritage, is very different than Métis Nation. The Métis Nation originated in the Red River Valley. If you're familiar with the name Louis Riel, he was one of the most famous leaders of the Métis people. They are their own tribe entirely. They have their own culture. They have blended to the extent that they have their own language called Michif. And that is very, very different. That's like saying Ojibwe or Cherokee or, et cetera. It is its own nation and separate from the First Nations, which is separate from Inuit genealogy. They are all Indigenous people of Canada. They just have different nations that they have set up their tribal governments under, different treaties, etc. So just to clarify that a little bit, because I forgot that people here in America, when they hear the name Métis, when first Indigenous people here in America would hear the name Métis, they think Métis Nation. They don't think descendants of blended people. So I just like to point that out because it caused some confusion as to who they thought I was telling them I was. And it's very difficult or it's very easy rather to be misinterpreted. So if you're going to call yourself Métis, you need to clarify that it's with a small m and it's more like Métis, which means descendants of mixed marriage, not the Métis Nation. That's all I'll say. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Shannon. That's great information to know. So next, I pulled up the National Library and Archives of Quebec. Again, it starts off with descriptions, etc. And then as you scroll down, you come across all these different little collections, etc. And the one we're most interested in is the bottom far right, which is genealogy, of course. So again, scrolling around, I find these various guides to how to use Bunk. And the ones that I highlighted in this screenshot were, let's start on the right side, a genealogical guide to births in Quebec. Then we move on towards the left to marriages in Quebec, and then a guide to deaths in Quebec. So if you're going to research on Bunk, vital statistics, these would probably be very next. Up. No, we skipped one. I don't know. The Bunk search page.
It might
and
be.
If you don't have it, no problems. Nope, stay on Druin. Stay on Druin.
Okay.
We'll be fine. the Bank search page, Bank is just not user-friendly. I tried to find my mother's baptismal record. I just couldn't do it. However, we don't have to worry because we have the Drouin collection. So in Quebec, in New France, the governmental civil vital statistics, really, they had to rely on the church records for baptism and marriage and burial instead of death, because they didn't really have any civil registration at that time. So, of course, birth and baptism, baptême is the French word for baptism. Marriage in French is mariage, same spelling. And then for death, it's really burial, because it's a church record. And they call that sepulture. So these are all sacraments in the Catholic Church. So they were all recorded. So the priests recorded each one in 2 large ledgers. At the end of the year, one copy was given to the civil authorities, and the other copy was kept in the individual churches. In the late 1940s, the Canadian Genealogy Institute took on a really big project. They visited each Quebec Catholic parish and they microfilmed all the pages of the parish registers from 1621 up until the 1940s. And then they used this to develop different collections. Ones that we're interested in, of course, are birth, marriage, and death, but they have like 15 different collections. But to get on these, you have to pay a fee because it's a subscription site. However, Ancestry contracted with the Drouin several decades ago to be able to upload and index these images. So now, if you have Ancestry, you can go on and you can find these records, show you what they look like. Now, remember, even if you don't have an Ancestry subscription, many libraries have the library edition, and they also have I believe, 2-week free trial. So Ancestry is the way to go. Family Search also has these parish records, but they are not indexed. So you pretty much have to know the name of the town, the name of the church, and the approximate date when this event occurred. And then you pull up a register, a digital register, and you've got to kind of digitally flip the pages and keep reading till you find what you're looking for. So unfortunately, it's not user-friendly. And the documents are sometimes really difficult to read. They're written by priests who conducted the ceremony. They are in French, of course. The priest's handwriting may be difficult to read. And if they're very old registers, some of the paper may be torn or disintegrated. So it can make it quite difficult. Next. Okay, so this is a copy of my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, Alcide Laravere. I used him as an example when we were looking at censuses the last meeting. So in the Ancestry Drouin files, I put in his information, and what I wanted was baptism, and this is what I got. So these are the microfilm images of these registers. So right over there, Shannon found them. You'll note on the left margin of each page, each written installment, there's a letter and a number. So B means it was a baptism, a baptême. M means it was a marriage. And S means it was a burial, the sepulture that I mentioned before. And then there's frequently a number. And that means that my grandfather's here has a B7. It means that that's the 7th baptism that priest did in that parish that year. and which makes sense because my grandfather was born in February of 1889. And then, of course, under that, there is the name of the person, surname first, and then the other name. So Lariviere. And my grandfather had three names also, like most of them. I'm showing you a very good one because this handwriting is very, very nice. And as a person who reads French, pretty easy for me to translate, etc. Not always the way. And you'll see on the far left, this is kind of like the binding of the register. It has the name of the town, which is Adamsville. And underneath, it's very small. It has the name of the parish, St. Vincent Ferrier. The county is County Broome. And then it's PQ, province of Quebec. Next. Okay. And this is what you get, very much like when we look for the censuses. The first thing you get is this summary of the important information that's on the document. And then you see the image, which you can click on, and then you can actually see what we just looked at in the previous slide. Next. So how are we going to actually read them? Well, for the last few decades, most people have just put it on Google Translate, but now we have AI, which is even better. However, if you don't have that capability at the moment, or you've looked at a lot of these, you can probably figure it out for yourself because the church required that the priests use a particular format of language when they did each sacraments. So I've done these templates just to give you an idea of what it is in English and where the names are that you're going to want to look for. Every one of these starts off with the date and it's spelled out in longhand. And then it's I, or sometimes they say we, I don't know why. I, the curate priest, the assistant priest, sign below, baptized. And then it's the first name of the child, born, today, yesterday, etc. They baptized very quickly, as well as they buried very quickly. So this is really kind of a birth date that's included in this document. Then usually there's the word legitimate. In other words, the parents were married. So legitimate daughter or legitimate son of first and last name of the father. Sometimes they put the father's occupation, and then the first and maiden name of the mother, and then the name of the parish. The godfather's name goes in next, and then the godmother. Sometimes they even put what the relationship to the child is, like aunt and uncle or something. And the godparents, along with the priest, normally sign below. However, if we're talking about a baptism from very long ago, many of these people could not sign, so they couldn't write. So the priest would put they signed below, or they said they could not sign. Sometimes the father was there, sometimes he wasn't. But this is the format that's used pretty much. Sometimes they throw in a few extra things. And I want to point out again that in Canada, women use their maiden name for anything that is a kind of legal or civil government, and all any church records always use the maiden name, which is really helpful to genealogists because it's really easy then to find their parents, etc. Next. Okay, so here's the translation for a marriage record. Again, start off with the date written in longhand. I, the priest, sign below, providing the functions of curate or pastor at such a church in such and such a town. I certify that after publishing the marriage banns on 3 consecutive Sundays. Now, that's what they used to have to do. The priest would be in the pulpit after the sermon, and he would announce that an engaged couple were getting married on such and such a date. He would say their names, and that was an opportunity if somebody knew something that would interfere with such a marriage, so they could come forward, such as the man in this engaged couple is already married and has another family, for instance, as has happened occasionally. So the priest says here he published the marriage bans 3 consecutive Sundays, and not having discovered any impediments, I've joined in marriage, the groom's name. Sometimes they put what is he legal, of legal age or minor. The groom is usually of legal age. And then it goes on to say he's the son of the groom's father and the groom's mother, again, maiden name, the father and mother of this parish. And then the parish is put in on one part. And then he starts and talks about the other part. The name of the bride, again, legal age or minor, daughter of bride's father, bride's mother with the maiden name, her mother and father of this parish, of the other part. After having asked and received in the church of this place their mutual consent, in the presence of witnesses named here and undersigned, I provide the nuptial blessing, and I have signed this the same day and year as noted above. Again, whether you can sign or not the witnesses, who knows? Next slide, we're going to be on the last one of these templates. Okay, the burial record's a lot shorter. Again, we start out with the written out date. And again, I, the priest, sign below, buried in the cemetery of this parish. Then, of course, the name goes in. The body of first and last name of the deceased. Who died, again, if there's a date that they know, they put it in, they buried them very quickly. Sometimes they'll put in how old the person was at the age of such and such, and it's not numbers. Usually it's written out in the longhand. Then if this individual was married, they will include the name of his or her spouse. However, if he is a widower or she is a widow, that will be included also. Again, if it's a woman that was the spouse, it would be her maiden name. And then present, names and relationships of various witnesses who signed below or could not sign. Next. Okay, there's the bonk search page that I was missing. As I said, just not user-friendly, so don't worry about it. Go Ancestry and Druid. Next. Okay, so there are a lot of other Quebec databases. Canadians, especially French Canadians, were very much into genealogy. So Genealogy Quebec is a website owned by the Druid Institute, and it has the collections. The birth, marriage, and death one is called La France, and it covers the events from 1621 to modern time. As I mentioned previously, it's a subscription site, but you can buy it by month or by year, which is helpful if you only need to look up a few things. And it provides the image of the record and a summary of the important items. And it is bilingual. Now, this is pretty much the same thing you get when you look into the Druid collection on Ancestry. So I always go to Ancestry. The next one is PRDH, which is a research, the English translation is Research Program in Historical Demography. And it was developed and held by the University of Montreal. And its collection, it comes from many Quebec sources, from 1621 to 1861. And it provides like a summary of the known facts about these individuals or a couple, and even all the people in the immediate family, if you can do that. And how you access this is you have to buy what they call kits that are sold in groups of about 100. And they're not terribly expensive, maybe $30. And one hit is used for each document that's viewed. It is also bilingual, so that's really helpful. The third one is BNS 2000, and you can probably figure what this one is. It is Baptême, Mariage, Sepulcre 2000, because it was launched in 2000. Again, multiple sources. The birth, marriage, death from the 1600s to the 2000s. Catholic and non-Catholic records in this particular database. And they too, you have to purchase what they call vouchers. And one voucher is used for each document viewed. And it too is bilingual. A lot of these are bilingual, which is great. Now, the next two are free databases. Fichier Origine, it in very settlers of New France. So if you're really looking for some really early settlers in the 1600s or early 1700s, this can give you a lot of good information. So from 1600 to 1865, and this was put together by the Quebec Federation of Genealogy Societies, as well as the French Federation of Genealogy, that's in France, and the historian Yves Landry and his associates. This is only in French, but it does cover birth, marriage, and death info from both France and Quebec. So if an individual was born in France and then came over to Quebec, it would have the baptismal info from France and then the marriage and death information from Quebec on parents, grandparents, siblings, and even lists some special groups of individuals. And then last one is New Origine. Now, this is about the early settlers, and it's in a family tree format. And the problem with this is very much like family tree, like Family Search's One World Tree. When you access this, you can add information on your own ancestors. So how accurate is that? I don't know. They say that there are more primary sources supplied with this particular database than with Family Search's One World Tree. I don't know, but it is bilingual. Next. So I'm going to show you a couple of screenshots of what these look like. The PRDH, this is of an individual, Francois Favard de Lhomme. He is my 7th great-grandfather. He was with Cadillac when they founded Quebec, when they founded Detroit in 1701. So after his name, or under his name, you see they have the name of his father, which is also Francois, and his mother. And then they have a little bit of information on his baptism. They're not too sure of it. And also on his burial. He spent all that time in Detroit. So it was, the burial was at St. Anne's in Detroit. I apologize for the lightness of the next words, but they're first marriage. So it says when he had his first marriage, what town it was, and who the bride was, Marie-Madeleine Jourdain, and then the name of her father and her mother also. Again, always maiden name. But obviously, Marie-Madeleine passed away first, and he married again, so there's a second marriage. And also in Detroit, and this time he married Marie Bob Wiesel, again, the name of her parents. So that is kind of what an individual or couple looks like. They, you know, they pull a lot of really good, important. Next. Now, I apologize for this condition, but this is the family display on PRDH. So I'll kind of walk you through because it's pretty hard to read. Again, this is on Francois Favard de Lhomme, again underneath the father and mother's name. And on the other side, on the right, there's the bride, Marie-Madeleine Jourdain, again, her father and mother. And then right after that is the marriage information, dates and location, etc. Now, under there, if you go to the far right, the orange box would say the name of the children and if they married, the name of their spouse. Then go to the far left. So for each one of these lines for children, the first column is male or female. Second one is the date and location of baptism. Then the next column, date and location of marriage. The next column, date and location of death. So there is a ton of great information here. However, we have to remember, this is a secondary source. They pulled this information from a lot of different documents. However, PRDH is really extremely accurate. Next. Okay, here's Fichier d'Origine, François Fafard. Well, unfortunately, when I pulled it up, if you remember, I said father was François Fafard also, and this happens to be the info on his father. But it says place of origin, and there's some names in France of the town and the almost like province or county. And currently that location is still called by this name. And it has his baptism in France, the date of it in 1630, and then his place of death, because he immigrated to Quebec. So he died in Bustica, which is in Quebec. And here's the date, Christmas, unfortunately, of 7/11. And they estimate he arrived about 1651 in this country. Next. Now, this is going to be another very busy slide. Okay, this is New Origin. Remember, I told you that people who access this site could add information of their own ancestors. So we have to be careful with this, and it is very, very small, difficult to read. But the green box on the left is my François Fafard, 7th great-grandfather, founding of Detroit. Above, we have the name of his father and the mother, which we've already seen. And then on the far left, the blue box is the bride. Now, in this case, they accidentally put marriage and not the first marriage. So this is Baguazel. And then again, above, her father and mother. And in the middle is where usually they have the marriage information. So they married the 30th of December, 1713. Now, because it's the second marriage, actually it was for both of them, he was 54 years old and she was 50 years old when that happened. Next. Okay, so let's talk about family tree software. So you filled in your pedigree chart and you've done some research and you found a whole bunch of great information. What are you going to do with it now? You want to organize it. You want to save it someplace to have easy access. And that's where family tree software or genealogy software is another name comes in handy. If you subscribe to one of the big major subscription sites, Ancestry, MyHeritage, or Find My Past, there is that software that is embedded right into the genealogy research sites of these paid programs. Now that's great. However, there can be some problems. For instance, you have Ancestry, you have a subscription, you're looking up information and researching, and when you click it, it kind of automatically goes to that family tree software that's embedded in Ancestry. But after a while, a year or two, you decide, I'm not going to do this anymore. So you do not extend your subscription. Once that ends, you cannot access that family ancestry. That's where personal genealogy software makes a lot of sense. This would be the same kind of software, but you keep it on your personal computer. You have pure access. You're the only one with access. And it is there and it's not going to disappear. There are loads of these kinds of software programs. You might hear the words Family Tree Maker. It's a very popular one. It's user-friendly. They like it because it's Windows and Mac compatible. and it syncs with Ancestry and Family Search. So if you're on Ancestry and you find a record and you click and it goes in your Ancestry software family tree, if you have not canceled your subscription, it's automatically going to go into Family Tree Maker on your personal computer. So you don't have to enter it twice. However, unfortunately, pretty soon they're no longer going to be supporting this particular program. Another popular one is Roots Magic. Pardon me. These are both programs you have to, and again, come with the Windows and Mac. It syncs with Family Search, and it has a free beginners program called Essentials. And then you get into some of the free software programs. Legacy Family Tree is the one I use and the one I'm going to be this evening. Unfortunately, it's only for Windows. It does sync with Family Search and with MyHeritage, because a few years back, MyHeritage ended up buying Legacy Family Tree. And then there's Family Tree Builder. This is actually the same software program that is embedded in the MyHeritage subscription site. Again, because MyHeritage bought that. But it is compatible with Windows and Mac. And dozens of others, but actually there's so many now, they're free. I never even heard of many of them. However, what happens if you are that person on the Ancestry I spoke about? You don't want to lose everything you put into that software family tree. What are you going to do? Or you don't like what you're using, you want to switch to another one. That's where something comes in that's called GEDCOMPS. And this is, it's a universal computer format for genealogy. Every one of these programs has a capability, a button for export and for import. So if you are on Ancestry and you know you're not gonna continue the subscription, you pull up your family tree in Ancestry, plug in a flash drive, hit the export button. It'll go on the flash drive. And then you download one of these personal genealogy softwares. And once it's downloaded and set up, you hit the button import. And it's like magic. It automatically takes all the information and puts it exactly in the right place on your new software. The right parents with the right children with the right dates, etc. So that's why I call it magic. Next slide. So this is Legacy, a little bit about Legacy. I just found the website for it, and this is kind of the page that says what's new. Legacy 10 is the newest edition, and so there's some new things that were not in Legacy 9. And before we move on, right above there you'll see an oval button, download Legacy 10. You're not going to do it now, but when you're ready to, that's the button you're going to push. And what they have here also is a video. And it basically tells you what are the new things in Legacy 10. Next slide. And then as you scroll down, there'll be some descriptions of some of these new capabilities and so forth. Next. At the very bottom of this page was this information. Watch our free webinars on using Legacy. How do you use Legacy? Well, they've got 5 of these webinars to help walk you through or teach you, etc. All of these computer programs, as well as other things we use on our computers, have tremendous capabilities that we probably never use. And these do as well. So when you're ready to watch something, at the very bottom, it says View Tree Webinars. And you would click on it and it'll take you to the Legacy Family Tree webinar page, which is now owned by MyHeritage. And that's where you can find webinars that you have to pay for, but also the free webinars such as these. And I would suggest, I looked at the first one. That's what you need to start off, but even that towards the end of it has some things that are confusing. So don't get overwhelmed. Next. Okay, so I hit that button, download Legacy 10. And what happened is I had to start an account. Well, first what happened is what happens in all computer programs. You know, do you get permission for it? And then you have to download it, et cetera, et cetera. Once it's downloaded, you set up an account and you put in your information. This is your family tree. You are the owner. So you put in all the information on that left side that you can. Now, what's on the right side was probably an error in it's what all the icons are on the home page, and we're not going to even talk about that now. Too confusing. So sorry I put it in there. So next page. This is the Legacy Family Tree homepage for Susan White. Now, this is the imaginary family that I'm putting together. You might remember that the last time we had a woman who was looking for a birth record for her deceased grandmother, who was supposed to have been born in Ontario, and whose name was Alice Louise Brown, but her maiden name was Smith. And we went to the Ontario provincial pages, and we found the right link for the database, and we found her information. And so I have given people names for this little imaginary family, and Susan White is the person who is looking for that document. Now, if you don't remember this, or if you did not attend the last session, I've got a few slides to kind of jog your memory. Next. Okay, so can you go back one, Shannon? Okay, so Susan White, she filled in the input page when she set it up. Obviously, she would have included stuff like her birth information, but I wasn't taking the time to do that. So I just put her name. And then above her name is parents. And there's one line that clicks to add a father and one line that clicks to add a mother. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm clicking and adding a father. Next. Okay, here it is. So when you add somebody, this page comes up. They already put in the surname White because we know that that is the family surname. And then you would type in the given name. My little imaginary family, it's Stephen White. And then you would fill in as much information as you can about where, when they were born, where, christening, when they died, etc. Once you've filled in everything that you can, and also kind of almost to the left, living, that's always important to fill in, especially as you get further and further and, you know, the great-grandparents have passed on. So once you've put in what you want, you hit the save button, which is on the top of the right column there. Next. So I have done this also for Susan's mother, Mary Brown. That's her maiden name. And again, I haven't filled in all the information. But I know that Mary's father was Joseph Brown, and her mother was Alice Louise Smith. That is the mystery document we had been looking for last session. So we're going to hit Alice Louise Smith, and we'll fill some information because this is Susan's grandparents. Next. So if you remember last time, and we did all that, the Ontario births, we clicked, we found Alice Louise. This is the information we found. We found out her birthday, where she was born, and then who her parents were at the bottom. And because this has an actual image, we clicked on that, and then we enlarged it so we could read and get more information. Next. So here is that actual document enlarged a bit so we can read it. And we see in that first column, there is Alice Louise Smith, and it says she was born December 3rd, 1911. It even includes the home address of the family. And she's female, and were the parents married? That's an interesting question. Yes. And then the full name of the father, Thomas Smith, and his occupation. He was a gardener. And then the full maiden name of the mother, Alice M. Moore. And then a few spots down, they even ask where and when the parents were born. I mean, sorry, where and when the parents married. And they wrote in there April 26th of 1896 in England. So this is all good information we're going to want to capture in our legacy family tree. Next. So I have added the Thomas Smith and Alice Moore. And now what I'm going to do is put some information on Alice Louise. Now, you might notice that Alice Louise has now moved down to the bottom there in red, because that's where the children go of the couple that shows up in this particular slide. So we're going to want to add some info. So next. Okay. So some of the things that were in there were not birth, marriage, and death information. They were other things that are good to know and to document someplace. You never know when you're going to need it. So there is a button that on one of the previous slides that's on the right side, and it says add. And this is where you can add more events. So we know that he was a gardener. So the event fact has a pull down menu. Occupation is one of them. Or if what you have, the event or the fact, is not in there, you can just type it in. And then description. So I'm going to click occupation. I'm going to write in gardener. And then I'm going to go over to the right side at the very top, save. So that's going to save the information to Thomas Smith's legacy family tree page, because he is the head of the household too. Next. So I added a few other things from that event page. I had to go back to add, and I had to go to that drop-down menu, and there was nothing in there for home address. So I wrote it in, and then I typed in what the home address was that was on Alice Louise's birth certificate. And we talked before about how sources are very important. Write down someplace the source of where you got this information. If we look at the icons on the top, the third one in looks like books on a bookshelf. This is the special part of the program that Legacy set up to capture the information to do a source citation. However, you have to fill in, answer the questions, book, author, page, published, etc. And it gives you a perfect source citation to put it in a publication. but I'm not going to publish anything. So I like to add my source information on these events, adding events and facts page. So that's what I did. I put information source, and I put from the daughter's birth certificate. And so now I can find it, but it's really not supposed to go there. So there's no open button. So if I want to see all the information for the source, I hit edit. Edit will bring up everything that I typed in. So I can then use it as a source for whatever else I'm doing. However, I'm really not going to change it in any way. So then I go up right and save. But there, and I find it easier than using the source program. Next. So if you are interested in learning more about genealogy, I will be putting together a kind of document, digital handout if you want, with the names of these websites and databases that we spoke about, both the last session and this one. And I'm going to put the URLs in. I really like YouTube videos on genealogy. There are several genealogy bloggers that do YouTube videos and put it on their YouTube station. And usually they're very short. They're just one little topic, maybe 20 minutes long. And it's really easy to watch it because underneath that we have webinars. Now that was sort of the roots tech stuff, but those are about an hour long. And then there are newsletters, again, from these bloggers or whatever, or genealogists. You can sign up so that the newsletters are sent to your inbox, as well as the blogs. And then we've got Facebook, really great source. Facebook has a ton of genealogy pages, and usually they're separated by ethnicity. So for me, it's French Canadian. I follow about 6 of them on French Canadian genealogy. They are very instructive. You learn a lot. And if you have a question, sometimes you put it in there and someone knows the answer. And the last thing, of course, is genealogy societies. Check and see if there's one near you. Check it out. The people in genealogy societies are very happy to help you, to share, to teach. And it may be worth your while if you want to continue to do a lot of genealogy. And of course, if you are near Kalamazoo, next, check out my local genealogy society, Kalamazoo Valley. It's at www.mikdgs.org. And there's lots of good information on there. There's forms, there's different things. And of course, there's a spot where you can become a member. And the membership per year is $14. It's unbelievably low. But if you have a local society, check it out. You'll learn a lot. Shannon, I'm going to turn this over to you now.
All right. Well, thank you, Janine. I have to say, this is such a very detailed walkthrough of what people need to do. And it is a bit overwhelming for myself personally. I struggle to follow on my own, and we'll be able to go back and watch this. We will be, it is being recorded. So we will put it on our website like we did the last session. And that way folks can go to it, and please share with others if you will, so that they can also learn from what we've put together here through the Canadiana Fest. Thank you so much, Janine, for all of this hard work.
Well, you're welcome, and I apologize for it is overwhelming. It's a lot of information.
Oh, geez. But yeah, that's not because it just is what it is.
We only had 2 sessions, and I didn't want to skimp and forget something that was important. So there it is.
Thank you. So I'm going to take a moment now to talk a little bit about what I do. If you've been in the other session, you probably would have heard some of this before. People are asking me, well, what is Canadiana Fest? I mean, what has that got to do with what you're doing here? Canadiana Fest is a celebration of all things Canadian. And under that umbrella falls a number of things. First of all, we are a grassroots organization. We are sponsored by a 501c3 by the name of STARA, which gives us some of those perks of being a 501c3, but I don't have to file the tax return. So it saves me a little bit of headache. It is a group of like-minded volunteers of Canadians, Canadian expats, Americans, just about anyone, actually, it is anyone who wants to come in and celebrate with us, help us grow this, help us develop and help present and maybe add to it their particular specialty, like Janine has done in sharing her knowledge and history and education in finding French Canadian genealogy. We do have a mission, and our mission is to bring the best music, food, art, sports, culture, and mostly we really want to bring the kindness of Canada and her peoples that culminates in a festival in the fall. We do many things throughout the year, but one of the things the festival does is that it raises funds for food banks, and we also support other organizations that do good in the world. So I like to say our mission is to do good while having a good time. And we do that a lot. We have all kinds of social events, hockey watch, skate events. We have a fundraiser coming up, which I'll touch on here. The Moose Soiree is our fundraiser to help us pay some of the expenses that occur in the fall. If you've ever put on a festival, you know that it is financially quite daunting. We have a really nice turnout, and we hope to see many of you if you can be in the region in September. If you can't, in May, we have an event at the Old Dog the Old Dog Tavern, which is the fundraiser. On April 7th, something very special is happening. One of the dreams I had when I first started this organization was, how can I reach people who would never go to Canada, who would never get a passport and make that trek across the border? How can I reach those people in inner city Kalamazoo who I think would really love to know about Canada? And one way that we have done that is through sports. And our festival hosts a sports center, Canadian Sports Center, every year with hockey, lacrosse, curling, and basketball. But that's only one day. And I wanted it to be deeper and more in touch in the community. And a partner joined us last year by the name of Premier Athletics, and they are a youth sports organization. They provide youth sports programming for inner city kids. And I approached them after they joined us, and I said, hey, what do you know about hockey? Like, could we do anything with hockey? And the director, Latron, said, I don't know, but let's talk about it. So we ended up finding that he was a part of an organization that's a liaison for the pro sports. And one of them happens to be the NHL. And they have a program called NHL Street. And so on April 7th, after just 8 months of working with us, our organization, Canadiana Fest, Premier Athletics, Tree of Life School in the Edison neighborhood in Kalamazoo, and a gentleman by the name of Laurie Nisker are launching an NHL Street hockey program in the Edison neighborhood. This is just incredible that we get to work with these young people. We're actually hiring a WMU Bronco hockey player. They're the current reigning champs right now. And Zach Nehring, number 8, will be our head coach. And we're hoping to hire some more of the Bronco hockey players to be assistant coaches and help us make this happen. So dream come true. Really, I can't wait to see this all come together. We have more coming. So you can join us on our website. As I had mentioned very early on, we have a few things coming up, and we hope that you'll check us out and come out and support the effort. So I think that's really all we have to add. So I just want to say, thank you so much
Do you
for,
have a few questions there, though,
yes.
Shannon?
Oh, yes, we do. And I'm going to get to those. I'm just stopping the share here so that I can go in and open up the chat. Okay, so let's see what we have. Let's start at the beginning. Nan added that read.ai meeting notes. Oh, okay, I see that's what they're doing for themselves. Great, Nan. I'm finding that my French Canadian ancestors often changed their last names from Burns to Brulette, Massia, Massa, Messier, Lawyer, Delorier, Deplace. Will that be a problem for my C3 application? Again, we're not lawyers to answer. What you should be doing is my understanding, and this is just based on my understanding. I'm not an attorney, an immigration attorney. You document the names and how they are related to you. So yes, my family, for instance, the Degel family, was actually the Dagre family prior to that, the name that they used. But I can show that birth certificate, marriage certificate, etc., with the name. And that is, you just have to show that tumble down link to how it gets to you. So hard for us to say, but this is the advice I've given people. I used to work for Revenue Canada. And what I would say is that when you're preparing your paperwork for Bill C3 and Canadian citizenship by descent, to make sure that when you put it all together, you give it to someone who doesn't know what's in there. You let them look it over, let them read through it, and then you make sure you say, the point is, I'm trying to tell you that I am the descendant of this Canadian person. And they should be able to read your instructions, the information that you've given, and be able to say, that makes sense. I can see where the lineage is there. If that person can't see it, you don't know. I mean, I know that the people it's being sent to should know better, but if that person can see it, then you should be pretty good getting it to the person who knows what they're doing. So that's just my 2 cents on that matter. It's something that I teach my students to be very clear. Okay, here's another question from Bobby. If my relative arrived to Nova Scotia around 1770, but wasn't born there, but lived 40 years there, owning land, held political office, does that qualify me? He did have kids born there, but I can't find a record for my third great grandmother. So again, you're asking about Bill C3. Does this person qualify? Were they a Canadian citizen? That's not a question I can clearly answer. I'm not an immigration attorney. So the question now is finding your third great grandmother. If you can prove that, you don't need to worry about, well, who came before her. And that is the person you need to locate. So we're hoping that the instructions you got in today's session will help you get there.
Shannon, let me just add,
Yep.
Nova Scotia has excellent records.
Okay.
So even just Google, and it'll bring up the province's archives and sites and databases, etc., because they do have good records.
Okay. All right. The next question from Kim. Kim is asking, how similar might be the Ontario guide to this Quebec guide?
Well, because you're using the word guide, I'm assuming you're speaking about the page that I showed that had guide to Quebec birth records and marriage records and death records. I don't know if they have one for Ontario. The problem, I believe the reason they have the Quebec one is because of the language issue and because many of those records were extremely old. So it would be very different from the other provinces. So I don't know, but go on Library and Archives of Canada and start scrolling and researching, and maybe they do have a guide for Ontario.
All right, Kim again. Ancestry lets you see the tree that you made. You just can't do anything with it if you do not have a present subscription. I have mine open right now. I only go back and subscribe every couple years. So there's a little bit of insight on that.
Yeah.
Of an observation. From Diane Houle, what if I am using my local library's Ancestry subscription and therefore don't have my own personal subscription? Will nothing of my family tree be saved? Can you answer that?
No, unfortunately, it wouldn't be saved because it's not really your family tree, your computer. Many people, the library edition, of course, obviously is going to be different because many people will use that compared to a personal computer at home. So usually you cannot save what you have researched in a family tree for you because it is it's a public computer. However, when you find something on Ancestry, usually there's a question that comes up. This is the library edition that says, do you want to send it to your personal email? And you can click yes, and it will send that document or description to your personal email that you can then at home open up and have that information, and but probably have to have a personal genealogy software program there where you would type in the information.
Okay, Marty is asking, do any of the genealogy softwares allow you to attach a JPEG to the source or original documents for each individual?
Excellent question. And virtually everyone has the capability to do that. So you can keep copies of documents or pictures and things like that. Again, this is on your personal site, whether a subscription site or personal software, but they all have that capability.
There are several thank yous to yourself and me for putting this together. So we just want to say we're just glad you're here. We were already planning on doing this. It was just going to be Janine helping me. And I said, I believe very strongly in being inclusive. And if we were already going to do it for me, why not just invite people to come? And then we were approached about Bill C3. Could we do something for that? And I reached out to a lawyer who is on a group that I started called Canadians in Michigan. It's a resource to connect with other people in the state who are like-minded. And this attorney, Amelia Cotto from Sisu Legal, joined in and was willing to do that session. So Kim is asking, the C3 application can be done on my own, immigration attorney not required? Not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, many of the groups that I'm in, people are left, right, and center getting their certifications, verification of their Canadian citizenship. And that's something to keep in mind. If you are a Canadian by descent and you have grandmother, great, 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 right now, as it stands, you are Canadian. You're just verifying it and being identified as a Canadian. So we do encourage people to act on it if they want to, if they want that to be their, to have that option of citizenship. I'm not going out and soliciting the public to come and do it. But if obviously you've joined in this, you heard about what we were doing. So No immigration attorney is required to submit those documents. Thank you. You're welcome, Bobby. Heidi, you are welcome as well. I'm so glad you were able to join us. I know there's been a lot of traveling and back and forth, etc. And again, another thank you from Carol. Everyone, again, it's our pleasure. It's our joy. We hope that you will find something to be interested in. Marty's saying this has been so helpful. And I know for myself, I'm like ADD central. My brain just goes everywhere. And so having Janine walk through this, it will be recorded so you can watch it again. And please share with your friends and family. Let folks know about what we're up to. I mean, I don't know that there's anyone else there's a couple of other Canadian festivals in the country. There's one in Atlanta. There was one in Florida. Someone's asking about what is the website again for the recordings. The website is canadianafest.fun. We have a webinars or events tab, and there are past events. This would now become a past event. So that's where those are being stored so that you can access them. This recording, it's going to take me a couple of days. It usually takes me through the weekend to get it downloaded and then uploaded to a source, and then to have a link, and to get it then have our web person add it to our website. So again, canadianafest.fun. You can follow us, you can join us. We're on the web, we're on the Facebook, Instagram. We're really starting to add more programming. As a matter of fact, we're looking at bringing a Canadian comedian into town in July. He's just an absolute riot. I won't say who it is yet because the ink isn't dried, but we're super excited to keep sharing Canadian culture right here in the heart of the Midwest. And I'm just grateful to have you all here. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye.
Peace out, everyone.
Yep.